All right, your SEC Insider hit this morning is brought to you by Two Brothers Smoked Meats. We had a great time there this weekend. The Tito's guys were in town. It was epic. What a setup on Saturday they had. At Friday, too. But that's right. After we interviewed Jake Mangum, then I had to run around a little bit, but I did eat lunch at Two Brothers on Friday. And they already had the Tito's deal set up. And then Saturday was incredible before the game. It was good to see so many people from Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas. And my two guys from New Orleans came up too. And they absolutely loved Starkville, Mississippi and the atmosphere and the people and so on, which is not what y'all want to hear on a Monday, but you do on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday or in another month. But anyway, we're live in the Bank Plus studio. Your SEC Insider hit brought to you by Two Brothers in Starkville and Taste Italian Restaurant in Starkville and the Renaissance in Ridgeland. TasteItalianKitchen.com to make a reservation. We welcome in Steve Robertson, GenesPage.com. His boards were fire this weekend, not in a good way, but it is what it is. 247 Sports, the Boneyard Podcast. Steve joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Steve, good morning. How do you explain the meltdown in Starkville Saturday night?
Well, I think it's evident that we've got a coaching staff that is still kind of learning how to manage end-of-game scenarios. I think it was Chris Hummer that dug up that stat. I mean, it's just crazy. Maybe you can find it, but you're up 17 points at home with under 13 minutes to go. You don't turn the football over, and you lose. I mean, it's almost impossible to think about. I mean, it's like I don't think there's a scenario that you could ever like play out in your mind to imagine that happening. That's exactly what happened. And but, there's some things you look back in hindsight, like why are we snapping the ball with 25 seconds to go on a play clock? Why are you punting to Niblet? I mean, and listen, Ethan Poyer's been outstanding for state. I'm not being critical of him at all, but. You got to get that ball out of bounds. And I don't know what he was coached to do, but when you've got the most dangerous punt returner in the country, and it's a 2-minute ball game, and your defense is kind of gassed a little bit, you still got to make them play the game. And the thing that, when we've talked about this before, part of coaching is applying pressure, right? And so you got to keep the pressure on them. And there were some things that Mississippi State did that kind of alleviated some of the pressure, just like, the third down roughing the passer when you're going to get off, the fourth down roughing the passer where you're going to get off the field there.
Ball game.
You got to be disciplined. Like, because the game turned on that play, I think most people would agree.
It did, and the game's over if the flag doesn't, hit the target. It's questionable, but they called it, so it is what it is. You mentioned, like, losing that game. Entering Saturday, FBS teams had lost 429 straight games when trailing by at least 17 points with 10 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. And Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby broke that streak. You mentioned special teams. Cliff Odom, never been a special teams coach. And I don't know how, we could go on and on about the decisions to not run kickoffs back when it was right there for you. Several. It was at least 3, if not 4. And then the 2 that they ran back when they shouldn't have run back. So, again, this is coaching or communication. Is that fair, Steve?
I think it is fair. And I think that last return is kind of part of the issue, right? Because, like, you return it out to the 13-yard line.
Yeah.
So you're basically giving up a first down right there. You're giving up those 25 yards of real estate that you get on the touchback. Because if you get in a scenario where you don't get a couple first downs and you have to punt, that's part of the issue, right? I mean, if you're punting from farther down the field, you have a much better chance of flipping the field. And so I just think that was a calculated risk that really didn't help Mississippi State. But again, you're up 17 points at home. You got to get home. You got to get that one in the win column. And I think that's the thing too that people are so frustrated about. Is like I think everybody involved with Mississippi State football will agree Mississippi State is a much better football team than last year. Probably better than most people expected. But you don't have the win-loss total to justify that. And I think you could certainly make an argument State should be 7-1 today. And that sounds kind of almost ridiculous to say that. Tennessee game, bowled out. You had a chance to win it with under 2 minutes. You couldn't get anything going. Obviously, the Florida game, and then this past weekend. I mean, State's 4-4, and there's 3 games that really kind of hinged on 1 or 2 plays late. So you could make an argument not only should State be bowl eligible, State should be playing for something of real significance.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. Mississippi State loses a heartbreaker to Texas over the weekend. That's 3 one-possession games: Tennessee, Florida, and Texas. How do you sell the fan base that this is eventually going to work at the level that they want it to work, Steve?
Well, I first of all, I go back to last year. Do you remember walking into Davis Wade Stadium last year, knowing you were going to lose, knowing you were going to get beat significantly, and you still showed up because you love Mississippi State? And you look at this thing now and the progress you've made in year 2, and I'm not a moral victories guy, but it would be short-sighted to ignore the progress this program's made when you have played some of the best teams in the country to within a touchdown, and you walk out of that stadium feeling like we should have won that game. So I think it's impossible to ignore that, as frustrating as it is, that you're not already bowl eligible when you feel like, hey, beginning of the year we all said, man, it's a tough schedule. If Jeff Lebby gets to be 6-6, he's probably SEC Coach of the Year. Well, he certainly had an opportunity to get to 6 already. So that would kind of be my selling point, is if you take the 30,000-foot view and you compare this season to last season, there is absolutely no comparison. And I think Jeff Lebby is showing that he has this thing trending in the right direction. You just needed to pick up a couple more wins to kind of validate that belief.
Look, they've got winnable games left. They've got some winnable games left, as you know. So there's still some. I think I'll quote you maybe from the last 2 or 3 weeks. There's still some meat on the bone. If Steve, I think yesterday and today, the next few days before they get on a plane to go to Arkansas on Friday and before you drive up to Fayetteville, don't you think that's going to be a telltale as far as if he can get them? I'll say this, Steve. I wasn't sure, and you and I talked about it off the air last week. I wasn't sure that he was going to get them back up and rolling. And when Texas scored like they did to start the game, I thought, oh, hell, this could get away from them and they could get run out of the stadium, and they didn't, and that's a credit to Lebby and the players, all right? But this has happened again where, it's been a disaster at the end. How important was yesterday and the next 5 days as far as hoping that this team will come out and play their ass off on Saturday, Steve?
Yeah, well, number one, last year, I think Arkansas was the worst possible matchup because of their offensive line and their ability to run football. And Taylor Green's a little bit banged up. He didn't run it much against Auburn. He's kind of working back from a knee injury, and Bobby Petrino kind of talked out of both sides of his mouth on Saturday postgame. But, the thing that goes back to is when you have a team or a player that maybe gets a little tight late, that's when coaching has to take over. You have to will them across the finish line. They got to make plays, but when things get tight late, and you want to avoid the self-fulfilling prophecy of here we go again, and I asked Lebby specifically about that on Saturday, that's when coaching's got to take over. And you almost have to treat it like a video game. And you say, hey, here's what we're going to do right here, period. And then you go do it. Because Lebby's been in that situation before. He has. Prior to this year, and certainly prior to his time at Oklahoma, he has been in these situations where these end-of-game scenarios were favorable to the team that he was affiliated with. A lot of these guys are learning how to win, and Blake Shapen included. You got some guys out there that they want to win, they're working to win, they hope to win, and I think when it gets tight late and you're on the cusp of winning, you have to instill in them the expectation to win and give them the plan to get home. And I think maybe that's where some of the disconnect is. I think maybe, Lebby, of course, first-time head coach, and not in any way being disrespectful, but he's learning how to manage these things as a head coach because previously he hadn't been the guy making those decisions.
No.
He may have been the guy that said, let's go, let's go, let's go. But now he's having to live with the consequences of those decisions when things don't work well. I got a lot of confidence in Jeff. He's an extremely intelligent guy. He's a good football coach. I think he learns from this and gets better. But I think in these moments, the players are looking to the coaches to kind of see how to act. And I think that's where you've got to step up as a staff and say, guys, we deserve to win this football game, and here's how we're going to do it.
Yeah. None of this surprises me, by the way. I mean, new head coach with no head coaching experience, new special teams coordinator, no special teams coordinator experience, new defensive coordinator, no DC experience. He may turn the corner. He may not. You're hoping, Mississippi State fans are hoping that he does. Okay, so we talked about there's some winnable games left. What if they lose out? What happens?
Yeah, that's a tough sell, I think, for some people. 0-8 in the SEC back-to-back years. I mean, I've seen some people say we got a Chad Morris situation in our hands. Well, I think this team has proven to be a lot more competitive, but you still got 4 games to go, right? So you're running out of games, and so you got to find a way to get a win or two. I don't just mean just be happy breaking the streak. You got to shoot to win every game. Right, you got to go out there with a game plan. I know that Lebby will have the game plan. It's just a matter of can you execute it at the highest level of proficiency. But I expect Jeff Lebby to be the football coach at Mississippi State next year, and there's a lot of reasons why. But one of those, I do think things are trending in the right direction, and we need the win-loss total to reflect that. But secondly, with all the chaos going on in college football, I don't think it'd be a great year for Mississippi State to hire a coach. But also, too, when you think about the progress that you've made, you get in a scenario where you're in year 3 under Leb, and a lot of your contemporaries around the conference are in year 1. I think it gives State an opportunity to perhaps get caught up a little bit and make up for some lost time following the passing of Mike Leach and, of course, the Zach Arnett experiment and things of that nature. I just don't think it'd be a good time for State to make a move.
All right, I'm going to counter. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I have to. He went all in on Blake Shapen in year 1. It didn't work. Okay. I hate that Blake got hurt, but the bottom line is he didn't play the bulk of the games. They had a running ton of money in year 2. And there was a lot of debate. They went through the Jackson Arnold sweepstakes and so on. People are talking about Camario, but nobody knows how. I mean, yes, physically and athletic wise, he's looks the part, but nobody knows if he's going to be able to play from the pocket next year at any kind of high level. You hope he does. I hope he does. Others, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So I'll tell you what surprises me is Jeff as a QB coach. Jeff's still learning as an offensive coordinator, and Jeff's still really learning as a head coach. But as a QB coach, he's got even more on that resume. I cannot believe that he decided year 1. I can understand. Okay, Steve, I can somewhat give a mulligan, but year 2. To not have a dual threat guy like Diego, like Trinidad, like Haynes King, like Connor Wigman, like Taylon Green, like Braylon Braxton at Southern Miss, there's no excuse there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's pretty clear that Blake Shapen is Jeff Lebby's guy. I mean, he's not a statue back there, but he's not the guy. He's not like a Marcel Reed or Camario Taylor, and I think Marcel Reed played exceptional the weekend. But I think that's an interesting point. I think when Lebby first got here, number one, the poor quarterback situation was a little bit deeper water than I think Mississippi State was prepared for. With Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward and those guys, you hope Lebby's reputation and relationships kind of pay off, but that's the neighborhood in which we lived at the time. I think you're in a much better situation now because it's not about a promise. So you can kind of show, hey, this is what we're going to do. But, hey, how he's handled Camario, that's one of the things that we'll see kind of moving forward. I have advocated a couple times that like to see what Camario could do with a full set of downs, right? And I know as of late, a lot of these games have been so nip and tuck, maybe you don't want to do that. But I really thought in an A&M game, and I asked Lebby in post game about that, Did you ever consider just giving Camario a series? Because that game was decided, right?
Right.
And what does it hurt to let him get out there and play in a game where the edge is off a little bit and just kind of see how he'll respond? I know you want to avoid a quarterback controversy, but the reality of that is you're the guy making out the lineup, And one thing I'll say about that too, one thing that was disappointing, in addition to the result of the game, I was not a big fan of the booing. And that's the thing, and I pointed that out on my own show. We're down there at Florida, and they're all chanting, "Fire Billy now," but they never booed those kids. And then you saw on Saturday when LSU's getting destroyed at home at A&M, they're chanting, "Fire Kelly now," but they're not booing their players. And I know some people think, hey, I gave $100 at a fundraiser one day, so I'm helping fund this program. We appreciate your $100. But at the same time, too, we talk about this togetherness thing. This is part of it. This is part of it. It is not a good look for Mississippi State. It's not a good look for our university, our fan base, in the very first quarter of an SEC game to have our fans booing their quarterback.
I've got a text on the text line. I want you to respond. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports. Tough morning for Mississippi State fans and the coaching staff and administration, as there should have been several meetings yesterday. I doubt there were, but there should have been on campus as to where they are and taking inventory and where they're going. So Charlie says, Bo, we have to stop the narrative that we are better than last year. Bottom line is there were 3 games we should have won that we did not, and the data suggests that's coaching. Your reaction, Steve?
I think all of those things can be true. Yes, we are better than last year. That's not a narrative. That's factual. The win-loss total reflects that, and the numbers reflect that. The fact that State's been so competitive reflects that. To say that it's coaching, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it is player execution, but as I've said on this particular segment multiple times, when you're up 17 points in the fourth quarter, as a coaching staff, you've got to get the team home. And so this talk about it being a narrative, that's incorrect. All of the empirical data certainly reflects that this Mississippi State football team is improving. But the reality of it is either you win or you lose, right? It's as simple as that. The statistics are for guys like me and you to sit here and talk about trends and have some fun to discuss. It's about wins and losses, period. But to ignore the fact that Mississippi State is a better team than last year, that's just being short-sighted.
If you're going to – here's what I said earlier. All right, I'm back. Here's what I said an hour ago on the show, Steve. If he wins a couple of games, then I think people will settle down and the overwhelming majority of the fan base will be fine with Selman and Keenum bringing him back. If he only wins one more, loses out, I think there's going to be a lot of people that say, let's make a change. I think if he is brought back, you have to make changes on the staff, and you also need to bring in some kind of McIntyre Rhodes type level guy on the offensive side of the football. How do you see it?
I don't know that I disagree with that either. I think you're exactly right. I mean, if you go scenario where you go 1-7 or 0-8, you're going to have to change something. And I think you look at the changes made in the offseason on the defense. Well, that has worked out exceptionally well compared to what you had last year. But I don't think you can just kind of run it back with the same group and say, okay, well, everything is just cool. I don't think that's well. All
right, so let me jump in here because you deal with these people all the time, like I do. You know, people all over the Southeast that are dogs and all over the country. If you're in Gulfport, okay, or you're in Atlanta, and you're an invested season ticket holder, and you do everything you're supposed to do, and you have 4 to 8 tickets. How do you run it back with the staff if you go 0-8 or 1-7? If you're going to bring him back, okay. But I don't believe that you can sell that person in Gulfport or Nashville or Atlanta to run it back as is. Is that fair, Steve?
No, I think that is fair. And if you're staring 4-8 in the face, it's a tough sell to that fan. I mean, there's a lot of competition for your entertainment dollar these days.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. And it's so much easier just to kind of invest in your fan cave and have everybody over and grill some steaks.
Right.
I mean, so, and I think Mississippi State has done a good job making football games more of an event, right? I mean, they've done such a great job with, game day management now and the game day experience. It's a lot of fun to be there, as you know. I mean, and the place looks great. It sounds great. Still got to upgrade a few things on the sound system. But, when the fireworks go off and stuff, it's like you feel like you've modernized the game day experience. And so the novelty of that has some people kind of coming back, right? But you've got to win football games to keep them coming back. And I think that's the most important thing. And, there's a lot of families out here that, they get their kids involved in everything. And it's like you're not just going to drop everything to go see Mississippi State play when you can't win an SEC football game. And I think that's the real challenge for everybody involved in the Bryan building and in the Silk Complex. You got to find a way to win a couple ball games here down the stretch to reignite this fan base, because the aesthetics of it all are simply not enough. Either you win or you lose, and that's where I think Mississippi State has got to ensure that they win a couple more games this year.
I got a minute and a half. If they lay an egg this weekend, where are you?
Man, that would be really, really difficult because you've had a full year, right? And Taylor Green's not 100%. I know it's a road game, but Arkansas's 2-6. They've lost 6 games in a row. Yes, under Petrino, they've been able to score at a much higher clip. This is a terrible Arkansas defense, especially against the run. And hopefully Fluff's able to go this week with one more week of treatment. He dressed and, went through pregame warm-ups, and it was obvious he was less than 100%. But, yeah, I think this is a chance to go win a ball game, but I'm sure Arkansas feels the same way. In fact, they're favored in this game because they're at home. But, yeah, if you lose this game, especially if you lose ugly, there's going to be a lot of people on the fence. They're going to be off the fence. They're going to be like, what, I'll just wait for men's basketball. I'll just wait for baseball. Yeah, it's a big week.
Yeah, so at Arkansas Saturday, and the Razorbacks are favored, which makes sense. But as Steve said, that defense is awful. And if you get Fluff back, who's the best player on your offense, along with, I don't know, Steve, where'd he go? Brennan or Booth? I mean, Booth has been phenomenal. I thought, golly, what about that run on Saturday night when they got down by 10 and went back up by 17, Steve?
Yeah, I Booth has been really good, and I think Fluff coming back only makes him better. But to your point, though, about the spread in this ball game, I'm a competitor, and as a coach, I was a competitor, and I would be telling every one of my kids, always, they don't respect you. The fact that they can pick 2-16 to have a favorite over us, you got to let them know.
No, I agree with that. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate you. Arkansas by 4.5. Arkansas laying 4.5 for this weekend, and that's a 3:00 game. Ole Miss 13.5-point favorite over South Carolina. 2 touchdowns, throw in another 1.5, baby. That's probably going to go up. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Show is brought to you by Taste Italian Restaurant in the Renaissance and those amazing wood-fired pizza. TasteItalianKitchen.com.